There was an invisible barrier that the research couldn't seem to penetrate. And it wasn't outright rejection, it was a subtle, reserved curiosity that consistently led nowhere. One specific data point stands out from a Riverside bar. Research shows that a man approaches a group of women who were friendly, and their English were perfect. Chatted for about 10 minutes. He bought a round of drinks and then a hard stop. The conversation hit a polite, invisible wall. They thank him for the drinks and turn back to their friends, leaving him standing there confused, which is pretty much what happens on a regular basis when men offer to buy women drinks while they're sitting there communicating with them, because that's typically what that transactional interaction is that guy comes up, the girl smiles, tucks her hair behind her ear a little bit, looks down at her feet, look back up at the guy, get a little woo woo. Then he decides to buy her a drink. As soon as she sits there, she hangs out at the bar waiting for the drink. As soon as he pays for the drink, she walks away. That's if she's going to keep getting drinks from this guy, use him as a source of free entertainment. She might hang out with him, invite him over to the table. They're going to keep talking, and everybody's going to keep laughing in the group as he's buying the group's drinks. But when he stops buying the group's drinks, they stop communicating and they walk away, which is why guys stop buying women drinks most of the time. And here comes Michael. He says, "Lady buys me drinks." Well, of course, you're 70 years old. For some reason, women are highly fond of really old men. They frown upon men being highly fond of 18 to 25, but women are really fond of really old men. So an 18 or 24-year-old can uh, chase after or pursue a 7-year-old man, and it's okay because the woman's doing it for so. But same dynamic, that same 70-year-old man can't pursue that same 24-year-old woman that would not object to the relationship with the man. Females would undoubtedly call that guy some kind of creeper, call him a perv, try to get him on the registry list, and not actually give the man the benefit of being a good man. It's crazy, isn't it? Expectations hurt. You should never walk into any kind of interaction with the unknown with high levels of expectations for success. You're supposed to carry high confidence. You're supposed to carry logic and reason. If in the event things work out in your favor, you'll be successful, but there's always a possibility that it won't. Now, after the gentleman was confused, and we had to try to figure out what was the missing variable that he had. In the West, this kind of interaction would typically lead to exchanging numbers, depending on how many drinks that you bought. But in Poland, it felt like he was being politely tolerated, which means that they're not hiding it as much. Oh, oh yeah. So the women think that you're homeless and that the money helps. Well, fantastic, you brought that up because I do believe on Saturday we're going to be discussing the immense quantity of homeless elders that we have in the United States. So, uh, but they're buying you drinks and they're being nice to you out of pity is still a devaluing feeling to have. I mean, some people ignore it and just enjoy the scenario, but I mean, the people who have pride don't want to be pitied, even if they are in a situation that is warranting of pity. You know, they don't even want empathy that could be misperceived as pity. Crazy. Now, the pattern that this gentleman follows through repeated. He'd get looks, but they weren't necessarily invitations, they were observations. In major Polish cities, being a foreigner isn't a novelty, but you are still being analyzed. They're sizing you up, not for a fight, but to see what you're about. Are you just another tourist looking for a good time? Are you a loud and arrogant, uh, expecting the red carpet kind of person? Uh, or uh, what's going on? Like, what's the purpose of you being here? We found during these investigations that be failing a test that you didn't even know that you were participating in. And then a lot of times men fail that test. Men fail that women are analyzing a man in a scenario before first contact occurs, where she made up her mind before he said hello. What they're gonna do here has already been worked out before he says hello. Once the guy in this research quickly realized stark differences between online narratives that we see, where social media uh, paints an incorrect picture of reality and the ongoing reality that we're in. The internet will often sell you that fantasy that post women are just waiting for Western men to rescue women. This is a massive and damaging misconception. So, uh, the women that were met in this dissertation were educated and independent and deeply embedded in their social circles, which this guy wasn't a part of. So they aren't looking for passports, they're looking for partners. And they are incredibly selective, far more than Western culture. Now, the dating culture here isn't fundamentally different. It's less about the hyper casual, hookup focused sense that we have here in the Western area, and I mean you might see that hookup culture all over uh, the United States, Mexico, and Canada and whatnot, in the capitals and everything like that. But it's more about establishing a genuine connection instead of just finding the next hookup or the consistent hookup partner. We're going to call friends with friendships, a situationship kind of thing. We come to find out that they want to know who you are, what your objectives are, and why you're in their country to begin with, and how long you plan on staying. Because for many of them, a man who's just passing through is a waste of time. So once you learn this the hard way, your initial approaches were all about a sense of urgency, trying to close the deal quickly. And that is the absolute wrong strategy. Post dating, even in a liberal city like Warsaw, rewards patience. It's often being not uh, a cold call approach at the bar, but through warmer introductions, mutual friends, social events, hobbies. It's like a slow burn kind of situation. Isn't that interesting? Michael says educated women don't marry down. Uneducated women don't marry down either. It's the hypergamy theory. So here's the logic behind this that women have failed to recognize. Women want a man that is better than her. I don't blame her. So as she builds herself up, she increases the requirements because she wants a man to be better than her. So when she didn't have a job, all she needed was a man with a job. When she gets a job, he has to have a better job. She gets a prestigious job, he has to have a more prestigious job. She starts making 75,000 a year, he's got to make 150. So she can't be two-time bachelor's degree, three times master's degree, and he be a high school dropout. Not going to happen. She's not going to be Wall Street, 58th floor, corner office, and he's a janitor. It's not going to happen. The name of her company is on the park bench that he's sitting on as he's waiting for the bus, probably with her face on the the ad. She's driving a Bentley. He's catching the bus at that park bench. That's not going to happen. Educated women don't date down. They don't marry down either. So this is where the first major strategic error becomes obvious, because if you're operating in a lone wolf fashion, you have no social circle in a country where the women are closely knit with their inner circles. You're just another anonymous foreigner. So you will eventually conclude that the most successful foreign men in Poland are ones who have integrated into the society. Your passport provides zero leverage in Poland. It might provide you a lot of leverage in the Philippines, maybe even Japan. I ain't going to get you that far in Poland. Status and social skills, cultural integrity are the real currency. So you have to be a well known person in that country before you get there. So if you stop trying to play the game in the dating scene and you start trying to build an actual life, join a language exchange group, start speaking the native language, get a membership at a local gym, don't try to date anybody at the gym, and begin attending events where you're genuinely interested in the event, not just a place that you thought you might be able to pick up chicks. If you focus on making friends, and this is something that is key, if you focus on making true, genuine friends, not just platonic friends, ladies, friends that are not going to lean on you for relationship behavior in the friend zone, ladies, think about that. Polish foreign men and women looking for friends is going to be a slow burn. And sometimes, if you're looking for that guaranteed connection before you fly back out, it's going to be frustrating. You're going to hear post people described as coconuts, hard and reserved on the outside, but warm and loyal once you crack the shell. Well, say it's true. It takes time to earn their trust, and making an effort to learn the language is a significant turning point. So while many young people in the city speak excellent English, speaking just about as good, if not better than Americans, attempting to speak Polish is a sign of respect for their culture. It signals that you're not just a tourist, that you're invested. Now, the moment that he could stumble past Dzizeku and Derby and form a few comely sentences about his day, the entire dramatic dynamic of his interactions are going to shift. So the invisible wall that was placed between the foreigner and the general population would start to crack. And people appreciated the effort, even though he said it completely wrong. Opens a bunch of doors. Getting to know your the native language of the culture that you're going to do business in or you're going to get a relationship in, knowing the language before you get there is key. But learning enough of it to get by while you're there is effective. Women who are guarded before will become more open and engaging. And you might find out that to unleash some of the Western dating protocols to be in the idea of Understanding that men always pay is still somewhat traditional in other countries, but many modern women will still insist on splitting the bill. So it's not about the money, it's about signals and equal partnership, which we completely lost in Western culture. Big flashy gestures are often less impressive than simple, thoughtful ones. A walk in the park, a visit to a cozy cafe, it's more about connections than consumption. Honestly, you have to understand that directness is highly valued. Now, the confusing game of playing hard to get is less common in Poland. If someone is interested, they usually show you very fairly straightforward in a way where you kind of get it. The aha moment wasn't one single event that occurs, but a general realization. And it comes in very small increments during conversations in broken Polish with a market vendor when a Polish friend invited him over to a family home for Sunday dinner. That's when you start meeting when people in other countries start inviting you to come and meet the family. In some ways, that is a full establishment of a trusted friendship, and in other ways, that is a full commitment of a romantic relationship, depending on the context. And then if you're on a date where the conversation just flowed because you're genuinely curious about the other person's life, not just trying to impress them, and then you'll realize that you've been acting like a consumer. We always say that you have to be the owner, not the earner. You have to be the guy selling the product, not the guy buying it. You have to be the employer evaluating the employee, not the person applying for the job. So, having an understanding that guy wanted to take a wife and take a profit at the same time, we have to understand that Poland doesn't give things to takers, it rewards participation. So, the moment that you stop trying to get a girlfriend and started building a life, everything's going to start changing around you. The desperation is going to be gone, which women can sense desperation like vicious animals sense fear. And you replace that with a quiet confidence that comes from having your own friends and developing your own routines and having your own place in the city to live. You're no longer just a foreigner now, you're just a resident. Now, being committed to being in Poland, that's going to be the tip of the iceberg. And that's going to make all the difference. So the journey also opens eyes to different experiences other than uh, being a foreigner. Discussions with other expats included Black men revealing their own case studies, and they reported that while they might get stares, especially in small towns, they were able to make genuine, welcoming connections in the bigger cities. So there are successes that come down to social skills, confidence, and a real effort to integrate. But they also note the need for situational awareness, as some bars and clubs could be less welcoming, and a reminder that everyone's experience can vary. Ultimately, the entire line of inquiry into finding love taught a lot of us when we went through this report the core principle of success in Poland, which is integration, because integration is everything. When you integrate something good, it becomes good for everything else it's connected to. Not a lot of times do people realize how good something is because they refuse to integrate with it. A lot of those of us who don't like upgrading our technology, a new technology is not compatible with our system. Does not matter how good that technology is. If we cannot connect it to our system, we can't benefit from it. And social interaction is going to be the same way. Can't stand outside the culture and expect to be embraced by that culture. You have to step in and you have to learn and adapt and show respect at the same time. And this finding is born from clumsy attempts at dating, which is completely unexpected, but it unlocks the other side of the coin. So as we begin to build real connections over some coffee, gyms, during language practice, we start to see Poland in a much, much more different light as a foreigner. So the conversations become more deep and it's dynamic, and you move past small talk and into people's real lives, what your real jobs are, your ambitions, your frustrations, and any opportunities that are available. You start hearing about the friend's brother who launched a successful tech startup or a colleague who was flipping apartments. You can invest in these things. If you have your own Polish friends, where one invited you to a dinner and was a software developer, that's a good deal. And another night that you were complaining about a lack of good project managers at a growing company, that's a whole nother that's two good ideas because not only can you be the staffing company, you could also be the recruiter, right? Explaining how Western European companies were nearshoring their IT operations to Poland, leveraging the skilled yet more affordable workforces than other places. So you come to find out that by talking about booming tech hubs in the city that you barely heard of, like uh, Roarlock, Roarclaw, and uh, Gandisk, or Danks if the G is silent. So Warclaw and Danks, assuming the G is silent. Now, hanging around a lot of other friends, you find that a woman from one of your common language groups knows something about real estate. You be able to connect with her, get her number. Now you're starting to talk to chicks. You start talking about small apartments that the other person's building, purchase prices, renovation costs, expected rent costs, and now you're doing research on the real estate field. The potential rental yields are significantly higher than what we would have thought about doing the research online, which I found is about 5 to 6%, or even more in some areas. And that's when it clicked. As you build real social life in a new country, you're gaining an insider's view of that exact same country from a business market perspective. So your initial plan, just buy property, was naive because you had no local knowledge. But now, through the same social integration that fueled dating life, you can find yourself getting real actionable intel. The lessons learned here are patience, respect, and building trust. And where the exact same skills that are required for success in a business are the exact same skills that are required for success in a relationship. The two sides of the coin. They weren't just separate objectives at all, they were intertwined. Now, to find a fortune, you have to first have found your footing. So, with the new perspectives, you devolve into the world of Polish investments. But this time, getting into Polish investments, you're going to be doing it with a sound mythology. So you're not going to just browse listings online. You're going to talk to people. You're going to ask questions. You're going to listen, and you're going to discover an economic powerhouse hiding in plain sight. Something that isn't all flashy, but very expensive, very profitable. Poland's economy is one of Europe's most resilient. It was famously the only EU country to avoid a recession during the 2008 financial crisis, and its GDP growth continues to outpace Eurozone averages, where forecasts from 25 and 26 indicate continued strong growth driven by domestic demand and investments. Now, your first thought is going to be a serious move in this real estate. You might call an agent friend and, get a guide. That agent friend might explain that while price growth might be stabilizing in 25, the fundamentals are still incredibly strong due to a major housing defect in a certain area of the city. You decide to run a case study, and then you're going to realize from this example that based on real research, you analyze a 40 square meter, one bedroom apartment in an older building in Warsaw's Makoto district, something around 600,000 PLN, which is roughly 140,000 euros, which is around 155,000 US dollars. Pretty cheap, right? Requiring light renovations that will cost you about 80 Polonian lures, which is about 18,500 euros, which is about 22,000 euros in America. Now, when you get help to run the numbers based on comparable rental properties, you'll conservatively expect about $3,500 a month just for that job. And after fees and repairs, the net annual income will be something around 38,000 a year. That's a neat rental year of about 5.6%. Trying to find a yield like that in London or Paris on a similar property, nearly impossible. But I've been able to dig deep and come to find out that reports show that the average gross rental yields in major Polish cities have been strong because recent data shows that Warsaw had a solid 6.49%, with the cities like Gdańsk showing yields of over 6.2%. But the opportunity extends far beyond buying and renting because if you have a developer friend, you can open your eyes to the tech sector. And then if you become a global IT hub, the way Poland has become a global IT hub, you'll be able to enjoy cities like Warsaw, which are called the Silicon Valleys of Poland. And I don't know. I don't think we're going to have as many Silicon Valleys around the world as we have Martin Luther King Jr.'s, but it's okay. He marched all the way to Popeyes and back. Now, the country, Poland, is a top destination for near shoring, which is getting your work from a nearby shore. So, not on your island, on the neighboring island, but not going all the way to like America or Canada to try to outsource somebody. Now, this is going to give you guys a huge talent pool to mess with, which also gives you an opportunity to educate folks, acquire the ambitions, empl- staff yourself with employees, and then have you on a reasonable cost that isn't torn down by the dynamics of the country. You can't always charge American prices, but if you can charge fair prices in non-American areas, you can still find yourself financially successful if it's not about greed. Now, this creates dual opportunities because for entrepreneurs, you can launch a business with lower overhead. Foreign investors of the venture capital market is going to be heating up, so you'll be able to see some of those guys come in. And this is going to be where a government uh, has some incredibly positive policies that benefits your Polish developments. Now, for instance, there are those special economic zones that I tell you guys about in most countries, where they're now currently setting up a business that can grant you a corporate income tax expedition or exemption of up to 50% of your interest. Now, me, you can get it one in every country around the world, but me, I'm like, you asking for too much. We gonna have to grab us a different bank. But there's always what 800 something thousand of them in the United States alone, federal banks. Oh yeah, I'm burnt out, but so if we look at the tax system itself in Poland, it's highly competitive. The standard corporate income tax, or CTI, is 19%, but for smaller companies with a revenue of under $2 million, it's just 9%. And there's also a powerful incentive like the IP box, where regimes are offering a 5% tax. And this is going to be on income from qualified electoral properties. Huge benefits for tech and R&D companies. Now, the government also offers R&D tax relief that can allow for destinations to have deductions on qualifying costs, with some deductions reaching up to 200% for certain expenses. Now, that's steep. There's even a lump sum tax here for high net wealth individuals moving their tax residency to Poland. If you meet the conditions, you can pay a flat fee of taxes for a PLN where the value might be around 200,000, and they will be offering you probably, 52,000 a year, which is plenty enough if you're going to be um, hanging out and getting delivered and whatnot. But to bring this to context, your 200,000 PLNs would be equivalent to 46,000 euros. Yeah, we did that. 46,000 euros. And this is going to cover all your foreign sourced income. So for high earning consultants or remote business ownerships, the tax savings can be massive, and the government actively facilitates this. And the polished uh, investment and trade. Oh yeah, that's going to be another big thing. Agencies like PAIH is designed to give free end-to-end support to foreign investors, offering everything from location calculating to help with bureaucracies. So it's a clear signal that Poland is open for business. I mean, they've streamlined the process for setting up a limited liability company, a structure used by a high percentage of foreign investors. But of course, it's not a complete paradise. Bureaucracy can still um, interfere with our abilities to be successful. It can cause harm and be a very big hurdle, especially in other countries. And being good, I can tell you that there's a local advisor that um, you should recommend that your knowledge in the sector is widely used and widely respected. Now, in some sectors, they have regions on foreign investment, but on the other hand, trajectory is clear. So, from the original discussions with local entrepreneurs to the opportunities that are expecting you is, in fact, a phenomenon that we forget to pay attention to. Like, for example, green energy, fintech, and healthcare are all expanding rapidly. Um, on smaller scales, you'll meet an Indian entrepreneur who opens a successful floor, uh, tricking individuals, and then you will find the possibility that you are, in fact, uh, doing a good job, but you clearly recognize that you need some help. Having an initial naive plan is uh, by far, uh, one of the confusing things to have when you're trying to pick up properties in real estate. You'll know that your informed strategy is too built to be diversified in a portfolio. So you might want to start with that Warsaw apartment for sale, generating a cash flow, and then using insights from your tech contacts so that you can make angel investments in a promising, fetching startup in the window. Yeah. Now, that's a spin on things because you'll be using this LLC to average the 9% CTA and come to a reasonable conversation, a reasonable conclusion to it. Now, you would have HE plus, uh, oh, look, I lost my place on that one. Oh, we're looking about the leverage that you're going to get. 9% leverage. That's why I was sitting over here. I was like, wait, what? Oh boy. When I told you I was tired as hell. I was over here trying to drink some Kool-Aid and keep myself awake. Because this is a lot of information. And I've been doing research since yesterday. Since yesterday before the show. So much stuff happened. I did not get a chance to get me a break in. So after you dig a little bit deeper and you try to pay attention to how to play this game, where you're not just playing the game, you're learning the rules before you play the game so that you know how to play the game. You'll find that your social network isn't just for the sake of company, it is a deal flow that you, as the advisory of the board and the safety of the net, the people that are going to catch you if you fail, can facilitate. So if you were putting more positive and more appropriate and more helpful people into your circle, you would have more positive, beneficial people in your inner circle. So look at the analysis shared, where in the results of trial and error, you'll find a life and a portfolio that is being built in Poland brick by brick, where relationship by relationship and uh, the showing of documents to the entire process is now being debriefed to you and everybody else that you originally did not have that access to. It's almost like a level of clearance. In order for people to trust you with their personal things, they've got to be able to trust you with their non personal things. That way, if you become not trustworthy, they don't have to worry about losing their prized possessions. Whew. Oh man, I'm tired. But I know that those of you that are still hanging around, enjoying the information that I have to give you, make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Take the time to hit those reaction buttons. Uh, because we're going to have quite a few more evaluations coming forward because I think that I'm going to be needing to do one of these case studies. But more interviews are going to be coming in with local experts and the real unvarnished truth about what ties to success and wondering, will that success be released? Also, uh, make sure that you guys take the opportunity to throw some comments into the comment section that are appropriate comments. Because I do pay attention to all of them, even though I don't respond to a lot of them, and be able to explain to me what's your two-sided coin objective and determine, are you investing for your love, for your future, or for both? And every comment that is read, uh, And I'm going to give you an open invitation of being more appropriate in the comment section for those that had to get pushed. This would be one of the key steps to making it more successful. So we're going to synthesize some of these findings. Oh boy, where does the project stand out? Well, 5 years after landing in Warsaw, uh, if your life today looks nothing like it was individually, uh, you want to project a identifiably later initial project date so that you can get an infinitely better project. You don't just go out there begging for the first girl to go out with you. You wait for the most beautiful one to approach. Find a partner who shares values, challenges yourself, challenges you, and is the cornerstone of their own life that they've built, the way you are a cornerstone of your life that you built. All right. You end up in a relationship that isn't a transactional fantasy. It is a real partnership going to be built on mutual respect and shared experiences. And many uh, periolog- uh, periologists that are making these evaluations uh, put you in a position to have more fantastic nights with your partner. Now, the effort to understand a completely different world must be laid from the foundation for everything else. Uh, okay, thank you. I don't understand why you do that every week, but I really appreciate it. Thank you. But then when we start thinking about the investments, because that's one of the things we wanted to cover, the first apartment in Makoto provides steady income. It's passive. Michael said before, passive income is always great. Fintech startups that you invest in might close if you don't invest in the right one, but it's a Series A round. And if you have an initial stake, it has to multiply. Since you diversified into a small commercial property in Danks, you would be able to understand and navigate how Polish tax system would efficiently work in this particular situation. So you want to think the advice of local professionals and turn those individuals into friends. And the primary conclusion of an evaluation and assumption like this is that while the love and fortune are never separate paths, they are two lanes on the same highway. The personal skills that you had to develop to succeed in the social sphere, which included patience, humility, and cultural respect, as well as listening, you are the exact same level of skills that you enabled yourself to be. So you just got to stop saying that I can't and start finding a way to do. Now, to identify and seize business opportunities, we're going to take a small look. Whew, it'll take me a long 4 hour, 3.5 hour nap. When you're showing genuine interest in the culture, you're going to find that people open up. They invite you into their homes, they introduce you to their network, and their network is going to know people. So inside those networks are opportunities that you will never find on Google search or market report. This information is specifically why I encourage you to file over on a work visa or a digital nomad visa. Because if you have a year to make this work, you're likely to find more. You have to understand that you can't just fly into Poland, especially a major city like Warsaw, stay in a Airbnb for 2 weeks, and completely expect to close a real estate deal or even find a wife. While there is availability, you have to understand it usually takes 2 or 3 months to close on a real estate deal, and it usually takes 3 or 4 years to close on a marriage, a stable one that's not built on a drunken voyage to Vegas. One thing you have to learn, because while they're starting to do more eco tourist, um, eco healthcare, real estate, and technology, green energy, low income housing development, um, in addition to green energy, renewable energies like windmills and solar panels and other such stuff. With all of these opportunities, you also have the back end opportunities that helps make those other opportunities better, like a uh, construction crew, somebody to build the roads to get to your resort. You know what I mean? Mm, there are a lot of opportunities. So you have to put in the time and definitely demonstrate the commitment in order for you to be successful in your financial investments, especially in Poland. It isn't just drop your money down and come back and pick up 10 times more when you come back later. You actually got to do stuff. So the most successful foreigners in love and business are the ones who aren't just visiting. Those are the ones that are going to be building the life. Poland just doesn't just hand you its rewards. You got to understand that this is a country that is going to test you first. What a full space. Hold on a second. This is for tomorrow's show, but he's saying, "Hey, boss, it's me again. I hope you've been doing good. It didn't work out with me and that girl I talked about last time I was here. Things ended on good terms, but still hurts after 7 months. But I'm okay. Hope you've been thriving. And I appreciate you touching base with me, Wales. If I remember correct, um, remind me which relationship that you were dealing with because I remember that you had a rocky situation where I believe that you were not feeling the respect from your girlfriend. If weren't you telling me about the first kiss and she didn't like the way you kissed? Was that the relationship that I'm thinking about? Because I know that we've covered quite a few, and I remember providing that advice that oh, different face. Okay, the girl with a different face. Well, okay, so you came up, and then later that day, I think, if not later that day or the next day, someone else came up. And now that I remember it, the other person came up from Twitch, and they were talking about how they were having trouble with because their girlfriend was mad at him because he didn't kiss right. Now it's like she should be proud of that because that means you don't got mono. You know, if you know how to kiss and you've been doing it a lot, because that comes with practice, and it is not like American Pie. But yeah, the different face. I mean, it's good to know that you're still standing strong. Of course, it's still going to hurt. Uh, People are like that. That kind of does play into what we're doing with right here. But yeah, tell me about it. That's real rough. But kind of what's going on with right here because we're talking about Poland, and Poland is a very tough place to get through. You when cultural beliefs directly influence your relationship, it is hard to say that you're going to quote unquote make it work You yourself can be all in on it, but your partner may not be. Your partner is more focused on what their network thinks about them interacting with you. So in order for you, without converting religions, there's not much you can do to become socially accepted in certain social groups. But at the same time, yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a tough uh it's gonna be a tough situation to go through. But stay strong because you're gonna end up finding the right person. One of the first things you have to do when you're going out and looking at individuals is you have to figure out what they want from you in a relationship, and then find out what they're willing to do in that same relationship. Because modern society has changed dynamics so much to the magnitude that masculinity is performed by women, and women are looking for men that are more masculine than the masculine women, which is a very big contradiction. And then the harsh part about it is that if you submit as a man, you've lost your masculinity. But if you assert your dominance as a man, then you're misogynistic and everything to that effect. So it's a lose lose. Now, you don't want a transactional relationship, but ironically, Western culture is going to be a transactional relationship because you have to find out what she's expecting from her man, and you have to agree that you're willing to fulfill those roles. She needs to find out what you're expecting from your woman so that she can decide that she's going to fulfill those roles. If you find that your partner does not want to aid in your agenda, you got to find somebody else. So there's no point in lingering in that. They're making it work, begging, pleading, it'll get better, blah blah blah. No, it won't. The pink elephant in the room is that there is a core value difference, and that core value difference may not survive. Now, if she has an extended loyalty to you, then it might work. She will choose, instead of being on one side of the spectrum, she will decide to remain neutral. By her deciding to remain neutral, regardless of the religious beliefs of her family members, if she remains neutral, you have the opportunity to thrive with her. But if you stay on your side of the spectrum and she stays on her side of the spectrum, and typically different religions are fighting with one another about which religion is better, instead of everyone recognizing that they believe in a higher power, and then everyone recognizing that if we treat each other to the best of our abilities, then we will be reciprocated by mutual respect. And then nobody has to be pissed off at anybody in society. Instead of thinking that somebody's got to be doing it wrong. And that judgment tends to start uh, religious conflicts, and then the relationship doesn't thrive. That we both stood strong in our faith, but we ended up drifting apart for no particular reason. It's like we woke up and we both knew it was over. I agree. Finding out what they are expecting is a big part, or maybe that was the reason. Well, yes, your religion is your religion, and you're not going to change your religion. Her religion is her religion. She's not going to change her religion. Her religion frowns upon your religion. Your religion frowns upon her religion. If you're going to stand on your religion 100% of the time, she's wrong, and that's not good for your relationship. And if she's going to stand on her relationship, her religion 100% of the time, you're wrong, and that's not good for your relationship. In order for you two to come together and have different religions, you would have to put your relationship above the religion so that your individual religions can have their own individual autonomy inside of a bigger relationship. But if your religion comes before your relationship, your religion cannot cover a relationship that is also covered from a different relationship. I mean, from a different religion, because there are different views. So if the practice of the religion was under the umbrella of the relationship, or the relationship came first, you would be able to survive. But if the religion comes first before the relationship, you're limited in your success. You now have to go and find individuals that exclusively affiliate in a proactive way with your religion. Now, that might be the first place to start looking. I wouldn't recommend in your specific church that you go to every Sunday. And the reason why is because church people talk more gossip than a group of single drunk women or a group of dirty old men in a nightclub. So you don't want to go and pick up a chick in your own church, but you can go to a different church inside of your religion as a guest and then find one of the girls in that church where the only difference between the two of you is which church that you practice the same religion. You would have more success with that. Because even me myself, I got it hard. When I walk up, my tan is going to be the first red flag. The religion that I claim is going to be the second red flag. And in some areas, because I'm an American, that's going to be the third red flag. If I get another shot, and some people don't like dogs, that's a fourth red flag. You know, if I get another shot to say something, you know what I mean? You can't win them all, but it's a learning experience. And once you learn from it, it's going to hurt. But once you learn from it, you're going to be analyzing future engagements to make sure that before you get emotionally invested in this, that the other person is accepting of everything you've got on the table. If there is a red flag, and that one of the concerns that I have is that you fell for her before the religion became a problem. And then the religion became a problem and you were emotionally invested and you were trying to make it work, but it wasn't working. And then y'all just like, you know what? This ain't gonna work. At least it didn't end with y'all like throwing holy memorabilia across the room. She's splashing you with holy water, calling you the devil, stuff like that. At least it didn't end that way. At least y'all prayed on it and walked away. You know, he said it was a good experience in the end. Even if it's over now, I learned a lot about what I want and where my lines are at. And I agree. We would have had to put the relationship above faith. Good point. Yeah, yeah. In order, and I am not in any way, shape, or form devaluing anyone's religion, but I can tell you that in order for you to thrive as an individual, you come first. And if you come first, then that means everything that you believe in comes after you. You know, is that true? It ended as good as it could have, right? But so like I said, you would have to come first. So let's say, you meet a person and they claim to be like an atheist or goth person or something like that, but you really like them. In order for you to make that relationship work with that person, while you might go to church every Sunday, you're not going to bring her to that church because look at the way she dressed. She's going to be judged, even though in that religion, shall not judge is supposed to be the thing. They will judge you from the door. They will judge you in the seats. They'll be mumbling and whispering and poking at you and oh is she? So you can't bring her to the church. So y'all would start off by having different days on Sunday. You're gonna go to church by yourself, or you're not gonna go to church. You have to put yourself above your religion. It's the same thing where if you're a family person and you are devout with the family, you have to put family expectations over everything else. Whatever your ideology is, whatever your core value is, that's what you've got to, and it's not a religious background that is your core value. What kind of person do you want to be in your life? That has to come first. So if you want to be a religious person that highly values his religion, do that. Do that. There's nothing wrong with it. But now that you know that, your focus is finding women that have the same expectations. Now, if you have a very strong religious background, but you can flex on someone else's different religious beliefs, then that means that your religion is going to come second to your capabilities to handling the relationship because your ability to stay true to your own faith while not disrespecting your partner's faith. It would be a key tightrope walk that you would have to walk. And that's one of the things that you will learn, that you might not be ready to do that yet. If you disagree with somebody else's religious practices, you might not be ready to date somebody who does not have the same religious expectations that you do. And religion is not the only time that this happens. This also happens in politics. You have a political view. If you're a Democrat and you're like a diehard Democrat, don't know shit about the policies, but you only vote Democrats. Yeah, right. And then you date somebody, you find out they're an awesome person. You know, y'all been around each other for 2 years, and then the election comes up, and you find out that she's a Republican and she only votes Republican. Now y'all are having political views that'll cause a divorce because y'all don't see eye to eye on the person, not the policies, the person. Because Republican only votes Republican and Democrat only votes Democrat some of the time, because for 70% of the votes out of 50% of the population being men and 50% of the population being women, the fact is that more than half of the country voted for Republican, even though the country is supposed to be divided between Democrat and Republican. Good point. That's the tough thing, figuring out who I want to be. I don't think I know yet, but I think I'm closer to knowing. So, what you can do instead of searching for another girlfriend, try this. Build a network of reasonably attractive female friends where your goal is not to date any of them. They're going to be your homeboys because they're easy on the eyes. It's easier for you to pick up a chick if you are accompanied by chicks because all the chicks will speak positively about you. They're like the best wingman when you're not trying to sleep with them, right? No emotional attachment to them, no boyfriend behavior with them. They're like your little sisters. And get to know them. And what will happen is those women will get to know you, and then they will promote you to a woman that you fancy, which would put you in a good position. He said, "Can you um, understand the Polish language?" I could learn the Polish language. If I was going to go to Poland, I could learn the Polish language. Anybody can learn. I mean, you got people who speak 5 or 7 different languages. I know that I'm familiar with about 3 languages, but that does not mean that I speak those languages fluently enough to just abandon English and just start talking in a different language for the rest of the show. But I also know that if I planned on going to a specific country, that I would try my hardest to pick up some stuff about that language so that if in the event that I needed it, that I could use it. But with our current society, we have technology like translation headphones, which would allow us to hear what they have to say in our language, and then we would be able to respond. But if we had 2 sets where the person that I'm talking to, hand them the headset, it's tuned to my English and mine is tuned to their language, and they're listening to me in their language and I'm listening to them in my language until I can learn their language, we can still communicate. So I don't necessarily need to learn Polish going in. But if I did learn Polish going in, I would be respected more by the people. The same way we as Americans feel like before you come to America, learn English instead of coming to America with no English and then expecting me to translate for you and I don't know your language. That's the same dynamic in every country around the world. It's better to go over there with some knowledge of how to speak instead of going over there, me no speak it, and then expect them to translate. It doesn't work that way. You say, yeah, political fissures can definitely be a relationship killer if you put the politics above the relationship, like you were saying. Yeah, that can get you fired if you put your political views, whatever you value first. So if you want your identity to be that manga first guy, the red hat with the, yeah, then anything that's not that, it ain't working. So when you decide on what your autonomy is going to be, that's when you'll be able to thrive a lot better. And that's also going to be when you're going to be able to find the right people that you can interact with. It just takes a little bit of it takes a little bit of inner research. You know what I'm saying? It takes a little bit of inner research. Uh, after I typically say that uh, two times the length of the relationship is the quantity of time you should put into figuring out who you are after that last relationship. Yeah, you learned a lot of stuff. You're going to do a little bit of growing, but then you need to figure out exactly what you're trying to accomplish before you get back into that dating field. That would be the best way to go. So if you were dating for 2 years, give yourself 4 years to figure this situation out. He said, people are scared because of what they hear, and everyone is like in flight or fight. So politics becomes life or death to people on both sides, and that lead to families being divided by political lines. You're definitely right. My brother's a Republican, me and my sister are Democrats, but they say I'm the one that's adopted. I'm like, uh, we would all be happy if we only got news from the paper once a week. You know, the sad part about us all getting news from the paper once a week is that whoever pays the paper the most money controls the news. Getting the news from social media is capable of providing more information, uncut, raw footage, but it also gives us more opportunities to receive false information. So then we have to curate that information. We have to research the information that we receive from multiple different sources to verify that the information is true. If the people on the left side of the room are saying the same thing as the people on the right side of the room, that's probably a fact. I told that to some people earlier this week when we were talking about religion. If you read every religious book that is out there from every different religion, the commonalities in each one of those religions is going to be what will be the closest thing to the truth, which is how to treat people versus how to respect one another. Those are common truths. Everything else, like how you should you pray, when should you pray, if you should be praying, what you should be eating, how you should, get up in a day, when should you work, all those different things are different things. But what the common thing amongst everything, that should be your truth. It said relationship questions, those should be for tomorrow. He said, do you think that opposites attract, or is it more like the similar attraction? You are attracted to what you're familiar with. um, Opposite behaviors attract. So somebody that's completely different from you, that might attract you to them because it's something new. You're boring, they're exciting, you want more excitement, you're attracted to that. They're more adventurous, you're more reserved, you're attracted to difference. However, you get into relationships and stick into relationships with what you're familiar with. If your parents used to fight at home, you're used to chaotic relationships. If you had upbringings where somebody cheated on somebody in the relationship, that's going to be the kind of relationship you're going to get into, and then you're going to be on cheaters, you're going to be on Murray, you're going to be on Jerry Springer, you're going to be trying to figure out these relationship situations because the relationship didn't go the way it wanted to go because you were attracted to. If you're used to toxic, you're attracted to toxic, so you're going to get into a relationship with someone toxic because that's what you're used to. But you're also attracted to difference. So because their lifestyle is different from your lifestyle, you're going to be attracted to someone that lives differently, that behaves the way you're used to behaving, which is why you're never supposed to date your type. Because if your type is not good for you, then that's the reason why all your relationships fail. You're always supposed to try to find someone new. Find someone you're not attracted to. Find someone that didn't have that spark, and then appropriately work your way into that in a mature fashion instead of just head over heels acting on emotion alone. Go into it with logic and reason and try to build the emotion in a while, because you probably will be a lot more successful, because when you're going in on emotion alone with no logic and reason, you ignore logic and reason, you ignore red flags, ignore rational thinking, and then that leads you emotionally and sometimes financially invested in a long-term relationship, which then leads you to the refusal to abandon that relationship because of everything you put into it. Now you're allowing yourself to be mistreated because you don't want to lose your investment. And typically, this is the men who have this because women don't invest in a relationship. They benefit from the relationship, whether women believe it or not. They benefit from the relationship. Men invest in a relationship financially from the first date, effort from the first date to wow the woman to convince the woman to stay. Women do not put effort into wowing the men to convince the men to stay outside of putting on makeup and putting on sexy outfits, which attracts the man to want to sleep with her. That's it. If that wasn't the temptation, there is no other. If sex wasn't the temptation for the woman, there would no other thing that would be offered uh, from the women to make a man say, "Damn, I want to stay here." You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about that. He said, "I think I've done dating for a year for sure." Yeah. What? How long has it been? Almost 5 years now. Like, bro, I didn't forgot because I don't even pay attention anymore. I go outside, I do my thing, and I'm focusing more on who I want to be in life, and then I know what type of person I'm looking for and where I plan on looking for them at. And when I get there, if the dynamic is what I expected it to be, then I'll see what it is. But if I get out there and I find out that's not the area I want to be in, then I'm going to go to a different area. But I'm going to evaluate the environment before I get into the dating scene. So I'm not even going to hit the ground like we're talking about Poland right now. I'm not going to hit the ground trying to date. I'm going to explore a little bit for a few weeks and then try to see what the culture is like. And then after I see what the culture is like, then I'll try to figure out if I'm going to pick something up out of that culture. So ignorance is bliss. Yeah, until it shoots you in the foot. They say the blind leads to death right off a cliff. At this point, I think we can't recork that bottle at this point. There's no way to record. You might as well just throw the bottle in the trash, bro. Throw the bottle in the trash. Are you allowed to leave the Matrix, Morpheus? I love that logo. That's not your face. I appreciate that. Yes, technically you should be able to um, escape the fictitious reality that you designed for yourself, but it really requires you to take first person accountability of your decisions and be proactive in your life, which is one of the things we talk about on the show. That when you think about the movie The Matrix, because I know that you're making a movie pun, but you have to think about the from the dynamic that uh, we build this fictitious world around ourselves, and then we just stay blinded by the fictitious world that we build around ourselves, and we try to maintain that image forever. And then when reality strikes, that's when you come out of the matrix. When you come out of that fictitious world, you find that your whole attitude changes, your persona changes, your exactly. You got to take the pill yourself. You got to take the pill first yourself before you can find somebody else. Because we claim to be in an era of people that are being woke, but we're not actually woke. We're blinded by too much free will. That's really what's going on right now. We're so blinded by too much free will. We have the freedom to devalue and degrade and disrespect ourselves, and then we want to be respected by other people. We have the freedom to devalue and degrade and disrespect other people as long as we don't break their stuff. We actually, some of us have the capabilities of devaluing and degrading and destroying other people, and because we don't get caught for it. And the fact is that since we have too much freedom, we are blinded by the society that we are creating. So when people say that, oh, my society sucks, but you live in that society, you contributed to the suckiness. You know what I mean? You can't say that the government is screwed up, but you don't want to go to jury duty. You can't say that um you don't like the way politics are, but you've never ran to be a politician. You know, you don't make change, but you complain about how change is needed. The fact is that in order for us to really be woke, we have to have first person accountability and take responsibility for our own decisions, our lack of decision, and the decisions that we allow to be made in our presence. Because a lot of times we end up in situations we don't belong in because our homie was doing something stupid and we thought it was funny to stand there and watch it, or we thought it was entertaining to stand there and record it. I get frustrated looking at a TikTok video where a bunch of folks is watching somebody get their ass whooped and all you're doing is recording that. Why are you not breaking that up? Why are you not getting some kind of help? You don't want to call the police because the police are going to shoot y'all. But at the end of the day, you need to be trying to do something. You are not supposed to allow people in your society to get beat down by other people in your society when you could have helped them. See what I'm saying? But that's where we are right now. We got a lot of people that are blinded in our society, and that's where the matrix metaphor comes from, is that we allow ourselves to stay in this rat on the wheel thing, and we just stay lost and we just keep spinning wheels, but we never try to improve. But when you decide the change is needed, that's when you come out of the matrix. So I think we're all just a bunch of children hurting each other on this floating rock. We don't know what we're doing half the time, and the other half we're hurting each other. Well, a lot of times you don't know how bad what you're doing hurts somebody else until after somebody's done it to you. People are generally good, but a crowd isn't a person, it's a crowd. Well, individual people have good intentions and make bad choices. And then the fear of getting in trouble, those good people who've made bad choices with good intentions then try to cover up those bad choices with lies and conspiracy theories and try their best not to get caught for the things that they do. So it does cause a huge problem because you go from being an honest person with good intentions to being a corrupted person that is avoiding the consequences for your decisions. If you accepted the consequences of your actions before you perform the actions, you don't really care what the consequences are because you chose to do this knowing worst case scenario, 30 years in prison. You did it anyway. So it doesn't matter what the judge says because you did it anyway, right? uh, since we can only control our own actions, should we ignore society and its problems as much as possible? No, you can stop getting angry at negative things that happen in your society that are beyond your control because you did not and could not do anything about that situation. It does not directly impact you and you do not directly impact it. For example, the riots that are happening in Chicago, if you're not in Chicago right now, you should not be wanting to get in your car and drive to Chicago and impact that situation. See what I'm saying? So you should be able to focus on the things that you can control. So while there are people in different areas of the United States and people in different areas around the world that are living in cities and states and countries where chaos happens and people are kicking each other's ass and killing each other and causing unnecessary harm to women and children, you are in a city, in a state, in a country where they talk to one another with respect and you don't got to deal with that. In order for you to nurture that type of environment, you talk to people with respect. Even if they did not start talking to you with respect, you try to maintain a positive communication with people, even if they're not positively communicating with you. You try to negotiate with people, even when they're not being cooperative with you. And if you cannot resolve the situation before you have to flip a table or punch somebody in the face, just leave. Let it go. If somebody takes your parking space, let them have it. You know, somebody parks right behind you, find another way to leave the location, or just turn on your radio, recline your seat, open your sunroof, and relax until they move their vehicle because you shouldn't be in a hurry if you left on time. You just chill in the car and wait till your engine finish running. And when they come out, you thank you. They're going to feel like an asshole. You just sitting there in your car looking, waiting on them to come out. Thank you when they move out of your way. You don't have to, hey, move your car, asshole. You don't have to. The fact that they made you wait and they know that they made you wait, they're gonna feel like shit. People have their own levels of self guilt. You don't have to scold society. Society will scold itself. All you have to do is show respect and expect to be respected in return. Now, while you're demanding respect, you're not going to negatively interact with individuals that don't have respect for themselves, and they're not going to have respect for you. But that don't mean that you got to get to fisticuffs with the Walmart employee that wants to see your receipt before you walk out the store in California. You proceed to walk out that store in California, and if they try to take your stuff, you call the police. You don't fight them. You call the police. They're trying to steal your stuff. You get a police report, and then you sue them for holding you hostage and stealing the stuff that you paid for. Because Walmart policy says you do not have to show a receipt to exit the building. They have surveillance cameras. If they recorded you stealing something, it is in their best interest to detain you in the parking lot after you have successfully exited with the stolen goods than to hold you hostage in the building to prevent you from getting into the parking lot. People don't think about that part. When an accident happens, it's not like that individual considered the possibility beforehand or the ramifications of something that wasn't pre meditated. Difference between manslaughter and murder, I guess. Well, see, the difference between negligent homicide and uh, an accident is you see this person having a seizure and you're recording it on your phone instead of putting a stop to it, instead of giving him CPR, instead of rolling him on the side and letting him get the fluid out of his throat, instead of calling 911 and getting an ambulance to show up. You know, in situations where you can't do anything else but record it for posterity, you want to get documented proof of what was going on. But at the same time, instead of intervening in a situation where you know somebody's going to get hurt, you know somebody's going to die off of what's going on, you're not going to do anything about it. That's a problem. And that's the difference between manslaughter, murder, negligent homicide versus we actually have good Samaritan self defense laws in the United States where even if a police officer is using excessive force, you have the legal right to defend from unnecessary behavior. That's one of the reasons why the Black Panther and the Million Man March was going down because people recognized that the law dictated that you're not supposed to treat even criminals that badly. Even if they did something wrong, they're still human beings, and you're still supposed to show them a reasonable quantity of humility. And if you don't, it is everybody else in society's responsibility to rectify that because being an officer of the law is a social job. They don't know the law before they become cops. They go to police academy to know how to shoot you, kill you, mace you, handcuff you, tase you, stun gun from afar, and then race with their car to crash your car so that they can catch you. The whole police academy is about catching you. It's not about learning what the laws are. It's not about learning what the statutes are in the city and state that they're operating in. It's about catching you when they feel like catching you, not because you did something wrong, but because they decided you should be caught. So not all the times do you go to a house party thinking that this might be illegal. But halfway through the house party, you find out a few people there are under the age of 18 and there's a lot of drugs involved. You might not have enough time to exit the building before you see the red and blue lights. But when you see those red and blue lights, you're like, yep, I should have left a long time ago. As soon as I seen the first line of cocaine, I should have left. You know, as soon as I seen Diddy come out the red room, I should have left, but you didn't. So sometimes the lack of action can get you into a lot more trouble than actually taking action. There are some who feel no guilt and they are tough to deal with, honestly. Well, you got some people that have a heightened level of self entitlement where they believe that they can do whatever they want, and you have to take that. And that is where our excessive free will starts becoming a problem because since there isn't a line in the sand, your rights stop where my rights start. And who decides where that line is? You or me? And we're supposed to both be equal. So that's where judges come in at. Where your rights stop where my rights start. And the closer your rights get to my rights, the more I feel violated. And the closer my rights get to your rights, the more you feel violated. So a lot of us get road rage when a car cuts us off. But a lot of us don't recognize that you're supposed to be 3 car lengths behind the car in front of you anyway. So if the car got in between you and the car in front of you, there should have been 1 car length between you and the car in front of you after that car got in. So it didn't cut you off. You were tailgating. and that car tried to get in, and you got mad because you didn't want a car to get in front of you. The fact is, if we really think about the situation that we're in, instead of being self entitled, a lot of the times we'll realize most of the stuff that we go through ain't worth it. We just make it our priority to get that done. And that's when we start having the most unnecessary hypervigilance and the most stress in our life because we cannot always win. And every time we don't get what we're looking for, we get pissed off to high heaven. Whenever the outcome isn't what we wanted it to be, we get pissed off to high heaven. And a lot of us don't have the ability to let it go, right? We got to dwell on it for years, you know. But that's one of the things that we end up learning as we get older. The older you get, the more things don't matter. The older you get, the more things don't matter. Uh, as Americans, we were born in a country founded by Abrahamic laws and Christian morals. While I think those laws are good enough to make a country, do you think subjective morality is a valid outlook? Actually, I'm a man of uniformity, so I don't think that subjective outlooks are good. I personally believe that if it should be wrong when you do it, it should be wrong when I do it. But if it's only wrong when I do it, then we have a problem because that makes it arbitrary. If I'm the only one that's not allowed to do this, that's stupid. That's wrong. That's unconscionable. We treat our children this way. Do as I say, not as I do. You can't do it because I said no, but I can do it because I'm an adult. Doesn't make sense. If you're not supposed to do it as a child, I'm not supposed to do it as an adult. See what I'm saying? So but then we also got to remember that those Abrahamic laws that were slash Christian morals, my people were property when those laws were created. So the entire legal system of the United States was not created for people like me. We're going to benefit from it because we're going to learn what we can and cannot do, and then we're going to fight for the things that we're entitled to have. But we're not equally involved in the same legal system. If my tan would have been 50 shades lighter, I could get away with a lot of things and I could get a lot of benefits. If my tan was 50 shades darker, I'd probably be going live from the middle of a maximum security prison. I'm just saying the 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 lack of morality and ethics in our legal system, which is enforced by human nature. It's one of the reasons why we have so much stuff going on here. Do you think that it's fair for the police to lie to suspects to catch them? I don't think it's fair that police are allowed to lie, cheat, steal, kidnap people, and call it an arrest or detainment. I don't think that it is fair that police officers are allowed to attack you when you have not attacked them. I don't think, and when police stop being defensive and stopped going from protecting and serving to seeking and apprehending, I think that police have lost their purpose. And I strongly believe that because they're not properly trained, good people with bad intentions and the ability to kill and get away for it are now itching to take a life instead of work out the situation. And a lot of times you have good people in a hostile situation because the hostility is coming from the police. And I don't believe that society is safe with the current law enforcement or military presence that we have in the United States because they are not trained to treat people as if they have yet to commit a crime. They are trained that you are guilty and I am going to prove it. But if you've condemned me before you've gotten a drop of evidence, then how can I prove to you that I didn't do it? If you already know beyond a shadow of a doubt that with absolutely no evidence on the table that I'm wrong, then here's the problem. Where do I show you that I'm not wrong? Where do I show you that I'm a good person? Where do I show you that I don't deserve to be treated this way? So yeah, I have no faith in them. I gotta allow them to do their thing, but no. Or should there be an institution that make the morality? We Because it's operated by humans and then humans are operated by money, the person with the most wealth is going to determine what is moral and what is ethical. Societal views is not going to outvote a billionaire because a billionaire is a billionaire. So, everybody apparently has their price and it just depends on how much you're willing to pay. But if what you're willing to offer is more than what they need, they will corrupt most of, if not all of their values, all of their ethics, and do whatever you tell them to do, down to taking somebody else's life when they're normally not supposed to be a killer because they needed the money. They will lie, steal, and murder because they needed the money. Doesn't matter what they needed it for, but they needed the money. So as long as that is the mentality of the Western culture, morality is completely out the window. Adult freelance workers, OnlyFans girls, escorts, exotic dancers, strippers, prostitutes, whatever you want to call them, selling their bodies for money because they need the money and they're not willing to put in the physical effort to work a 9 to 5 job or get them an online job that pays them for something other than their body, use their brains, use their skills. No, they don't have to do that. And they don't even have to be reasonably attractive because men are so desperate and lonely because the women that they date don't value them, that the men are going and getting busted women that they got to pay for to get attention from a woman because the women that they date don't give them the attention that they need. So again, you have a group of people who will pay the money to get acknowledged and a group of people who needs money. So they'll do whatever it takes to get that money, including acknowledging you where they otherwise would have not been interested in you in the first place. Isn't that strange? If you wasn't paying, they wouldn't be talking to you. But because they're paying and you paying a pretty lump sum for the hour, they're going to give you whatever you're looking for. It's a bunch of books that you've never read before, buddy. Now, uh, I think subjective morality is dangerous. Personally, I don't know who should make the rules. I know it's been the church historically, and now the government, but both are deeply flawed. So where is the line? Well, technically, society is supposed to make the rules, but society doesn't want to be responsible for itself. Society wants to put it into the hands of the Lord, which is the lack of personal responsibility. And then when they don't put it in the hands of the Lord, society puts it on the government. The government is 501 people in the society that is making decisions for 385,000 people. When, like jury duty, we're supposed to change those people out every 2 years. Technically, we should have 500 and something new people every year or every 2 years. The same way we have a different jury group every court case. And if we had that, we would have a different set of laws. We would have a different set of structures. Because if this 2 years is your turn to make a difference, and next 2 years is my turn to make a difference, where at least once out of every American's life, they were involved in Congress at least one time, at least one season, we would have a completely different country. But somebody is able to be in their political position for 40 years and we don't even know that person. We've never met them, hardly ever see them on TV. So since morality is subjectively made by the people who have the authority to make the law, it used to be done by the church, and the church used to control the ignorant. Now it's controlled by the government, and the government is controlling the lazy. When the church isn't controlling the ignorant and the government isn't controlling the lazy, the knowledgeable become wealthy, and then they pay to make change. And history is written by the person with the pen, not the person telling the truth. So whether or not what really happened in the past happened doesn't change anything. What matters is that we take that as fact. What do you think about the no fault divorce law and its contribution to the collapse of the nuclear family? I don't actually have an opinion about the no fault divorce law because women are going to divorce men with no reason at all. I know that it is my understanding that back in the day when women could only divorce a man for abuse or abandonment or neglect, that was not enough in certain situations. But I do believe that the person who filed divorce should get nothing out of the divorce because if you want to leave, you can go, but you go with nothing. You take your shit just like when Dr. Dre left uh uh the rap game with Suge Knight and started his own record label. When he left Death Row Records, he left the label. He was 50% owner of and he left the label and all of his royalties and started up his own record label somewhere else. Is the same way. The my observation is not so much about the divorce law. My observation is about why women get divorced. Because the no fault divorce law allows women to get divorced just because they're not satisfied, not because there's clearly something wrong, because they're not satisfied. And I personally believe that before women start demanding, because you also have to remember this part, back in the day when there was arranged marriages, women were forced into marriage. Back in those days, women were not allowed to get a divorce unless the man did something wrong. Then you have the no fault divorce laws. But now women with the no fault divorce laws are forcing men to marry. And then if the woman is not satisfied during the marriage, she's the one that files the divorce. Instead of pushing a man to marry you, you have to do two things. You have to analyze, are you even wife material? Not that feminist movement, I'm a 10, I'm perfect, accept all of my flaws at the same time, which is a contradiction because you can't be perfect and you can't have flaws at the same time. Are you wife material? Are you doing what he would want his wife to do? And then you have to ask yourself, are y'all working towards the same financial goals? Those are the two things you got to pay attention to because outside of being married under the eyes of your religion, you also have the financial contract between two people. If you two are not working for the same financial success, you're going to end up in a divorce. If you're not willing to work towards his expectations, even if he is working towards your expectations, y'all are going to end up in a divorce. Then you got to also check, is he willing and capable of meeting your reasonable expectations? Because if not, y'all are going to end up in a divorce. So, why are you dating this guy? And then why are you forcing him to marry you? Because if he did not propose to you, it ain't the right time to get married. If he is not setting the date, it ain't the right time to get married. If he is not getting the wedding arrangements together, it is not the right time to get married. If he is doing it because you said do it, oh yeah, it's about time, but he's doing it because you said do it, not because that's what he wanted to do. And then after you marry him, you're not satisfied with the way things are going, and then you're going to file for a divorce. I don't like that part. I don't like that part. Why'd you force him into it? So if you really, if you force the man into a marriage, sweetheart, you need to stay in that marriage till death do you part. For real, you need to be a widow because you forced that marriage to happen. And I'm talking about every female that's in. I ain't making you no sandwich until I got a ring on my finger. I ain't doing this and I ain't doing that till I got a ring on my finger. That's fine. You won't be doing shit because I'm not putting a ring on your finger because had you been doing that, you would have earned the ring on your finger. You ain't doing it. That's why you ain't got the ring on your finger. So we ain't even gonna have that conversation. So, but just like we were talking earlier yesterday, matter of fact, Tuesday, we tell you before you even get into an engagement, get 50 to 100,000, $150,000 worth of shared credit with one another. How much is your wedding supposed to be? $175,000. Get you $175,000 worth of shared credit with one another. Joint credit. Y'all can establish enough joint credit to pay for the wedding, then y'all might be able to get married. But if you got your money in your back pocket and it ain't none of his business, and he got his money in his back pocket and it ain't none of your business, and y'all got a joint bank account, and the most money y'all put into that joint bank account is enough to pay the bills, y'all do not need to be married. Y'all are fucking roommates that sleep with each other. If y'all are not building a true to life together, y'all should not be trying to get married. But y'all try to get married because that is the nuclear thing to do. Find somebody that you beg to stay with you. You bribe them with lavish gifts and expensive dates. Then y'all get used to that. Then you beg them and bribe them to come back to your place or go back to their place, used to that. And then y'all continue to convince each other to stay around each other until you get used to being around each other. And then the woman's family is pressuring her to get married and have children. Then she starts pressuring her man to get married because she hasn't been married yet, and all of her other friends are getting married. Which that's got nothing to do with my decision, but that's the argument on the table. And then you have the proposal. Well, she been bitching at me to do this for so long. I'm gonna go ahead and go do it. Well, what if he couldn't afford to do it in the first place? What if that was fiscally out? Because you're not talking about going to the justice of the peace and paying like $50 to $75 to get married with two witnesses. You're talking about a 40, 50, $75,000 wedding reception in a specific venue with a dress that you will only wear once in your life. And then we're going to go on a vacation that technically we can't afford because we live paycheck to paycheck. And you want to get married now? Like we would do better. I said this plenty of times before. Take all of that money for the wedding, put it into high interest stock options, build a trust, and have that trust issue us dividends over the next 10 years instead of getting married. Just live together and have a trust with the wedding money. You could do a whole lot more with that. $150,000 wedding paying 20% interest. You'd be getting almost $30,000 a year off your wedding money in addition to your day-to-day paychecks, which means that if your standard of living is covered by what y'all working for, the 30,000 a year that y'all be making off of not wasting money on that wedding, y'all could take a trip 3 times a year. Y'all can buy luxury shit, name brand this, expect because it's guaranteed 30 grand is going to be coming to you on top of. But that's not what people think about. So two people that I can recall off the top of my head about the Civil War, William Lloyd Garrison and John Brown, were both uh, radical Christian abolitionists. Yes, both citing the Bible as arguments. You know something? It is funny because we had this guy that popped in a couple times tonight from different accounts, and he comes in and he quotes the Bible, just something about the Bible. And people who quote a book, I'm gonna just do it like that. People who quote a book to prove their point, to me, is not proving a point. Because in that exact same, because what you got to understand is that they're not just coming to you with the only chapters of the Old Testament where no mercy and no redemption was in the Old Testament. They come from the whole book that includes the New Testament where apologies and forgiveness is repetitively done. So you went from zero tolerance to deliberate behavior to all you got to do is apologize on Sunday for dropping it like it's hot on Saturday, and you can go to the club on Friday. I can deliberately commit sin as long as I apologize for the sin after that in that same book. And that is not the type of logic that any logical and rational person can come and argue, not with me, that um, one line out of the book, one sentence or 3 sentences out of the book specifically says that this is how the world works. Because I can find four different paragraphs that can tell you the exact opposite in the exact same book. And Christianity is very far from perfect, but there were many Christian about abolitionists in the North that fought and died in the war because of their beliefs that all men were made in God's image. But see, the problem with that thought is that even though all men are allegedly made in God's image, the problem with that mentality is that all men are don't include women. That phrase, all men are created equally, or all men are created in God's image, implies that women are not made in God's image. I'm not saying that women are not equal to men. I am saying that the fallacies of the book are so defined because that same book, you took certain lines out of the book to validate slavery. Just those words that you put right there, all men are made in God's image, not only put non-white men below certain people, it put women below certain people. The fact is that if you were to go through that book, and Corinthians 1 through 31 tells you about how to treat people with respect, how to value yourself, how to value others. You know, that is like a very good section of the book that really gives you a moral compass of how to behave. And you can find those exact same teachings in the Quran about personal improvement and personal development, mutual respect. And I'm pretty sure there's a few other books that have the same um, guidelines. But remember, while we're all supposed to be considered made in God's image and we're all supposed to be considered equal, remember in the Old Testament, the monk that killed the bug and got smited by God, and then the monk started sweeping the ground because all life, no matter how small, is all equally seen in the eyes of the Lord. And then you think about the fact that thou shalt not kill, but we kill animals for substance, we kill each other, we kill for discipline under the law. And somebody came to me and told me one of the funniest things. It's not funny, but it's funny. And I'm just going to tell you that it's funny because he told me the guy that administers the death penalty is a serial killer. And I didn't think about it until he told me that. The guy that kills the murderer for committing murder is a murderer, a paid by the government murderer. It makes you stop and think, right? The whole purpose of he who has not yet sinned, please cast the first stone. And the metaphor of throwing or throwing rocks at a glass house is the fact that um, the first realization that you have is that you cannot find fault in someone else that you don't have in yourself, because you can only recognize when something is wrong when you've either done it or you've experienced it. So you know it's unfair, probably because you've been unfair to somebody else. He said, just like the story of John Brown, yeah, in the Lloyd books. Uh, I guess it always comes down to interpretation and what parts in imperfect book you follow. It's like how people who read the Quran don't immediately become jihadists. Yeah, well, the thing is that when you are more open minded, you're not willing to take on stereotypical cues to prove that you respect or believe what you just read. When you're open minded, you understand certain scenarios. And when you are more open minded, even if you disagree with it, you understand certain things. And when we're looking at this particular dynamic here with different interpretations, if it's an interpretation, it is not the actual fact. It is a hypothesis, maybe, rumor has it, kind of. But when people treat it like it's law, you're right, it is an interpretation. What they believe it should mean, where thou shalt not judge, my belief and your belief is not, nobody's opinion is wrong. Facts are facts, but your opinions are not right or wrong, which also means that you should not condemn me because we don't agree. We acknowledge that we don't agree and we move forward. But when you understand that it's an interpretation, we understand that it's an opinion, and no one religious activist of any kind should be forcing their interpretation onto other people. I've had some people tell me, "Oh yeah, the prophet came and I'm delivering the word and blah blah blah." And I asked them, I said, "Well, how do you know that you're the prophet and you're not the one that's being told by the prophet that what you're doing is wrong? How do you know that I'm not the prophet that's here to ask you why you're doing it this way? Have you ever thought that you were going on a whim and that you were headed down the wrong path?" For those that hear the word of God, how do you know that that's the right person that you're listening to? Have you ever heard the voice of the right person? Have you ever heard the voice of the wrong person? So then, how do you know if the work of the Lord is done through the acts of man that I wasn't told to come and tell you that what you're doing is wrong? How do you know that? This fallacy in and of itself, this fallacy in and of itself causes problems when people are diehard towards their position with no backing for their position. I believe it, blind faith. They're just doing their thing, but that's another scenario where they're trapped in their own matrix. No religious scholars have a consensus on anything. They don't. They don't. If the Vatican watched this podcast right now, they'd be pissed off. But if they get your 10%, they're not going to complain that much. But why do they not do away with homelessness? Big ass $40 million buildings that they be hanging out in. Why don't they get rid of homelessness? I think individual people are trying their best in life. I agree with that. And right now, in the grand scale, people are suffering the least in the world right now compared to history. And hopefully that trend continues. You know what's so impressive about that? Because that is a fantastic thought. You know what is so impressive about that? We have so little chaos right now that we have enough time to make a big deal about the chaos that we have. We have so little violence right now that we have so much energy to complain about violence. Because there used to be a time where we didn't have enough room to speak about getting beat down because we was about to get beat down again. And now it's been so many decades since an ass whooping has happened that we can complain about the ass whooping that's going viral on social media. The only reason why we're able to complain about the smaller quantity of violence in a bigger way is because it is being it we look for chaos on social media. The algorithm, the algorithm, what you look at a certain quantity of time is re-shown to you. So if you're looking at street fights, protests, bad traffic stops, people throwing people out of their house, people throwing people down the stairs, people making a scene in public. Guess what you're gonna get shown? The exact same stuff. Then when you look on your feed and all your feed is showing is chaos because that's all you was looking at. Then you think the world is full of chaos. No, it's just your fucking channel that's full of chaos. Because we've been live since 23, and half the people that came to the show today did not know we was here until they got here today. And this is one of the most educational and most diverse podcasts on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube combined. And not too many people knew that we were here. About 84,000 people knew that we were here. You understand? So the fact is that which is what I said about 45 minutes ago, is that people who think that their society sucks, People who thinks that their city or state sucks, that their relationship sucks. You are a participating factor in the suckiness. Anything about your life that you have the ability to control, you can put in the effort to make changes towards that. You cannot control what other people do, but you can control what you allow to be done in your presence. Not by physically putting your hands on them and making them do things they don't want to do, but by removing yourself from the presence of people who do not do what they are supposed to do. That's how you make change. That's how you put a stop to things. But until you say what I'm going through is wrong, I don't want to be treated like this. If I don't see change, I'm leaving. Till you put that in your mind, it's time to go. But you're not going to leave until you put that in your mind. My homeboy told me once before, if you're in a shitty relationship, you got to think about it. You got to think to yourself and ask yourself if it's worth it. Bro, if you are in a shitty relationship, you know it's shitty. Why are you asking yourself, is it worth it? Asking yourself if being in a shitty situation is worth it is like asking yourself, are you not that valuable? Think of the most degrading images you've seen on a movie before. They performed that scene for money. Now ask yourself, how much money do you think you would have had to get paid to degrade yourself like that? Back in the 80s, back in the 70s, back in the 60s, in Asia right now today, you are supposed to hold yourself with a level of respect and dignity. Don't disgrace yourself. Don't disgrace your family. Don't disgrace your dead ancestors. But in America, that's called First Amendment freedom of speech. So if you're willing to degrade yourself for free, Steve-O made billions of dollars degrading and devaluing himself and then degrading and devaluing his family and then got a whole bunch of friends to help him degrade and devalue himself and they all became rich behind chaos. Chaos sells. But how many people made themselves millionaires off of educating people on how to be better people? How many people became millionaires off of helping people change their lives so that they can be more satisfied with their own life? And we can marinate on that for a minute because we can't think of one person who got rich off of making everybody else successful. We can only think of people who get rich off of entertaining us and people who got rich off of making an ass out of themselves. Who cares? It pays. So we got to think about that. Now, as we wrap things up, you guys got to remember we were talking about Poland, and Poland doesn't just hand out rewards. Just like I was telling you guys about America, it is a country that will test you. This country is going to want to see if you're serious about your shit. It will challenge your assumptions and it will humble you about the things that you thought stereotypically versus the way things really are when you put your feet on the ground. If you pass that test, though, if you show respect and integrate into the culture and treat the country and its people as a community with the same level of mutual respect by joining in, not a resource to exploit, but to value and enjoy and respect, the rewards that you would get from that would be immense. You will find a quality of life, a sense of community, and a level of opportunity that is increasingly hard to find in the West. And you'll find a place that feels both deeply traditional and increasingly modern. You'll definitely find a place to call home there. The Polish dream is way more real than the American dream, and it is not a simple fantasy sold online, but it is definitely something that is very real. It is a dream of building a meaningful life, cheaper than you would in the United States, a loving relationship that you can value, respect, and appreciate, and a lasting fortune all at once. But the key that unlocks it all is realizing they are all part of the same journey. It turns out if you pursue one the right way, you end up achieving both. Now, this investigation is far from over because Poland is a dynamic country and the variables are always changing. So I want you guys to follow along as new investments are explored, investments that you guys did not know existed. So we're gonna be covering some of these investments in next week's show. We're gonna be covering some of the culture that is navigated and a life that is built in Poland. And we want to make sure that you guys subscribe and turn on your notification buttons and like the channel because this is going to be an ongoing conversation when we cover different countries around the world that we can invest in. And your input is a huge part of it. As you've seen today, it's a highly interactive podcast. So even if you're on Twitter or Twitch, appropriate comments will be addressed. Make sure you share your own objectives and your questions. And when we start talking about Poland, I'll be able to evaluate all your questions and comments and be able to get back to you with a reasonable response. But are you considering making a move like this? And what are your biggest fears and hopes in making a drastic change? I want us to figure this out and join this path together and see if we can make the changes that we wanted to make long before we reach that retirement age. So I appreciate you guys that were listening and hanging out and going through this detailed report with me today. Uh, Before we go, I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, we're going to be covering some topics. Saturday, we're going to be talking about the increase in the homeless population, but Thursday and Friday, we got some pretty interesting topics that we're going to be covering. I want to make sure that you guys stay tuned for that. We're going to be getting closer to our 11 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock Central time that we're supposed to start at. Try to get started at the top of the hour. So make sure that you guys stop by at least 15 minutes after the hour. We should be on the air. So swing by whenever you have time and we can go through a lot of information and be able to debrief you guys on the stuff that you need to be successful. Now, ladies, remember that it's always a pleasure. I love chatting with you guys. I love having intellectual conversations with intellectual people. Um, and ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, I want you ladies to understand that the information that I provide not only is to help men become higher value men, but ladies, y'all can use this information to make yourselves higher value women as well. It's not just to become higher value in financial status; it's to become higher value in your personal character and your uh your personal life, really being able to improve your personal life impacts your professional life, and being able to improve your professional life impacts your personal life. So I encourage you to proactively put in the effort to make the changes that you do not like in your life, that you are able to control so that you can navigate around the things that you cannot control. That's all I have for you guys for tonight. I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night.
Higher ground! Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. Knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.